Welcome to Delaware, also known as the first state because they ratified the Constitution on December 7th, 1787. The First State Heritage Park is the first stop in Delaware. It is located in Kent County, Dover, Delaware. The First State Heritage Park is the start of a walking tour of Delaware's capital. The John Bell House is the oldest wooden structure on the green, and it is the site of an interpretive center and summer archaeology digs. From this location, historical interpreters offer walking tours, ghost tours, and short talks on the activities that took place during the Revolutionary War era. Visitors learn about Caesar Rodney, John Dickinson, the Golden Fleece Tavern, to name a few. The Golden Fleece Tavern was one of the meeting places for Delaware's Legislative Council during the Revolutionary War, and the location where Delaware ratified the U.S. Constitution in 1787. Just down the street is a marker and a statue to commemorate this event at Constitution Park. Another nearby location is the monument for Caesar Rodney at Christ Episcopal Church, formerly known as Old Christ Church. Rodney, however, is not buried at the cemetery, but behind Dover Air Force Base near a marker labeled Byfield, which was the location of Rodney's childhood home. His grave is unmarked. The Green, which is the commonly known name of the area of Dover that contains First State Heritage Park and the government buildings, museums, and archives in downtown Dover, is also home to Legislative Hall. This monument stands at the back of the building and notes the history of Delaware's regiment in the Revolutionary War. Ironically, the words liberty and independence at the base of the monument are in stark contrast to the recently placed fence around the building, which went up in response to the events of January 6, 2021. Not far from Dover Air Force Base lies the John Dickinson Plantation. John Dickinson, also known as the penman of the Revolution, lived at this farm in Delaware. He is the writer of Letters from a Farmer in Pennsylvania, member of the First Continental Congress, but he did refuse to vote for the Declaration of Independence. The plantation is usually open for visitors, and tours do lead through the home, which has been recreated and restored to its original condition. During the spring and summer, there are usually live interpreters in period dress who explain how the kitchens operate, demonstrate blacksmithing, show how the farm was run, spin wool, and other trades, and they have interactive exhibits for everyone to participate in. Heading south leads to another adventure, one that traverses the states of Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and often into Canada. That is the journey of the travelers on the Underground Railroad, which Harriet Tubman used to not only escape slavery herself, but also to lead many others on the perilous journey north. The rural tidewater setting of Kent and Sussex counties are similar now to their atmosphere then. At night, it isn't difficult to imagine the footsteps of fleeing slaves treading through the brush as they come across the many creeks, rivers, and streams of the Atlantic watershed, while crickets chirp through the night. Visitors to the Delmarva area can still travel the historic sites along the Underground Railroad, along the Harriet Tubman Byway in Maryland, over the Choptank River, and along some of Delaware's back roads through Camden and Dover. Camden is home of the Camden Friends Meeting House, a Quaker gathering place and place of refuge on the journey north. Dover is the location of Woodburn, the historic governor's home and the site where Paddy Cannon, the infamous slave hunter, captured some runaway slaves. In Chapter 35 of The Entailed Hat by George Alfred Townsend, Cowgill House is the stage for a raid by Cannon and her gang. According to the Delaware Archives, Woodburn was owned by the Cowgill family at that time. The book is a work of fiction, however, and a local legend. Unfortunately, due to COVID restrictions, a tour of Woodburn House was not possible. As you can see, this area is rich in history, from the Revolutionary War to World War II. In northern Delaware, there is Peapatch Island, which is the home of Fort Delaware. It housed Confederate prisoners during the Civil War and was once featured on Ghost Hunters. In southern Delaware, along the Atlantic shore, is Fort Miles in Cape Henlopen State Park. Fort Miles houses Battery 519 as well as Tower 7. Battery 519 was built to defend the coast against the German Navy in the Atlantic. Tower 7 was one of several observation posts used for coastal defense. The only downside now is that most of these areas are seasonal in nature, with tours running from April through November. And COVID restrictions have put some changes in place for those where advanced reservations are generally required if you can get in at all. None of these places would be possible without public history. Chapter 6 of the textbook, Introduction to Public History, Interpreting the Past, Engaging Audiences by Lyon Nixon Shrum, talks specifically about how to engage audiences. They wrote, audience engagement seeks to pull the audience into the historical content. Civic engagement encourages audiences to use that content in the wider world. When public historians practice civic engagement by linking events of the past to today's issues such as environmental concerns, human rights, racism, or violent conflicts, they push or even transgress the boundaries of traditional public history. And that is the goal of each of the places mentioned in the video. Using digital technology through apps, hashtags on Instagram, passports to the past, these historians have opened up a new way to engage the public on local history. You can walk in the footsteps of Harriet Tubman. You can walk along the streets of Dover that are still cobblestone, where the revolutionary men and women lived and worked and founded our country. And even now, during a global pandemic, this is still possible because they have been able to have some in-person tours, obviously with restrictions, but they've learned how to use platforms like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and even .gov sites in order to upload interactive tours of each of these locations, where a historian goes on camera and gives you a tour of the building and lets you see what they do and how they engage the past and how it even is relevant to some of the things that happen right now in the present. Without historians being able to navigate these social media platforms, they wouldn't be able to stay engaged with the public the way that they are now. After all, isn't that the goal of public history? To find a way to make history accessible, interesting, and engaging to the public. That doesn't include people that are historians. That's school kids, it's adults, it's anybody who has an interest in the past. And that is what a lot of these sites have done. They've found ways to cultivate interest in the past and find a way to make it engaging for people in the digital world.